Hey guys, Ted Elsner, Sacramento Historical Fencing Academy. Another brilliant day, still kind of overcast for me. I was watching a video last night from the New York Historical Fencing Association, and it was a question that was posed about mindfulness in fencing and in your training. And it's a really good question, and it's one that deserves to be shared and talked about more. So what do we mean by mindfulness? Well, especially right now, while we're all standing around at home trying to get our solo practice in to the best of our abilities, we want to practice with an eye towards what we're doing. What do I mean by that? You've probably heard the expression, practice makes perfect. That's not true. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you just practice and you don't care about what you're practicing and you just go through the motions as you think they exist, then you're practicing being sloppy. And that's something that you're just reinforcing every time that you do it. On the other hand, if you are mindful about what it is that you're practicing and you approach it with a distinct intent to train the thing to the best of your ability, as close to perfect as you can, you'll get more perfect. Right? So I want to practice my footwork. I should set up a goal with that footwork. I should say, okay, I'm going to practice my passing steps. All right, feel them as you do them. Take your consciousness and concentrate it in your legs, your hips, your torso, in the parts of your body that are doing the movement, right? And this takes a little bit of practice. Some people have a harder time with it. Some people have an easier time. But change the focal point of where you're really existing in the moment. If you're going to practice gathering steps, same kind of thing. If you're doing your cuts, do them from different places. And I don't mean that physically different places, but I mean physically different places within your body. Do your cut, and then do your cut feeling your arms and what your arms feel like in the motion, what your hands are doing in the motion. Push your focus out into the sword itself and kind of feel and visualize what it is that the sword is doing. Now, I'm not trying to be, all kinds of like metaphysical or anything about that, but it's just putting your focal point of your consciousness there, right? And paying attention to it and perceiving it in different ways than we get if we just flail our hands about. Also, guys, another part of mindful practice is understanding that you have opportunities to do it all the time, right? If you're standing around with nothing else to do, that can be a great opportunity to practice getting into a stance, feeling, your legs, feeling the turns of your feet, how your muscles are lining up, how your bones are lining up, and being aware of all of the points of your body. It's going to make a big difference. If we just flail about, both in our training and then in our actual fencing, we're doing, honestly, what I like to think of as cargo cult hema, right? Hashtag cargo cult hema. It's going through the motions without actually understanding what we're doing. Mayorists in particular are sometimes guilty of this, and I say sometimes, I really should say often, of doing things that we're told to do in the 1570 longsword, but without knowing why we're doing them, right? Oh, well, I'm going to come in, I'm going to show the art, and I'm going to do these loopings, I'm going to do these big motions around that are just creating opportunities for Nachreisen for our opponent. Now, that can be an okay strategy if we're doing them mindfully, if we have an understanding of the reasons and what we're trying to provoke out of our opponent and what kind of responses we're trying to draw. But too often, people are just flailing about. Well, Meyer says, do these things. Okay, yeah, he does, but he also tells you to read the play and understand why you're doing them, right? So it's one strategy of the fight. High-level fencing can look very similar. and especially to the untrained eye, could look almost identical, where you see people changing off, doing, you know, big looping actions, doing particular motions that seem perhaps unnecessary. But if they're being done in response to a stimulus given by the opponent or to provoke a response from the opponent, then they're not the same thing, right? And that, again, touches on mindfulness, knowing what it is you're doing, why you're doing it. So do your training, think about what you're doing, put yourself in the moment of your training, feel yourself, be able to visualize yourself. I personally can't visualize anything. I have that fun kind of brain that has no mind's eye, but I can feel the things, and so I can imagine motions, and I can conceptualize them and what they're going to feel like to me to do. And so a lot of times will be spent with that conceptual space, understanding and feeling what a particular cut is going to look like when it's actually done, even though I can't physically make myself see it without doing it, or watching it back on a video. You might be able to completely have a fight in your head where you can play out all your actions and you can visualize them from beginning to end. Statistically, most of you should be able to do this ultimately. If you can, great. You don't have space to practice in, practice visualizing it. Practice running through the motions, trying to understand what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it. You know, it's a little bit like playing chess with yourself, except that in this case, you're having a sword fight with yourself. And that works too. So practice mindfully, think about what you're doing, feel what you're doing, visualize what you want to do, and don't fall into the cargo cult hema category where you just do stuff just 'cause. That's generally a bad idea. But hopefully this video has been interesting to you. If you're enjoying these kind of daily little ramblings of mine, hit that like button, maybe leave me a comment, maybe subscribe if you haven't already, and come to our Sunday classes and ask some questions there. Hope you guys are training, having fun. I'll see you next time.